Good morning. So we're gonna start with the cycling. It's around half an hour, and then we're gonna move on to glutes, back, and abs. But that's after. Let's let's eat this elephant piece by piece, starting with the back. It's 7 in the morning. 7:11. Oh well. Indoor cycle. There we are.
Welcome back, guys. I'm your trainer, Tommy Ribs. We are here in the beautiful country of Switzerland, just off the shore of Lake Geneva. We're back on Route 46. We're going to finish off this week with an easy recovery ride. We're going to shoot for right about 30 minutes. Let's do it. Okay, so just like the last time,
Incline 1, resistance 10.
Nice and easy.
Nice warm up.
Warm up. So if you feel tired, if you feel fatigued, if you feel maybe a little bit of achiness or soreness from these last 3 days of climbing, then that just means you're doing it right. So this workout is important to go nice and slow, keep it at a light intensity. We're gonna help flush out our muscles, get some blood flowing, and see some beautiful places along the way. So these first 5 minutes, in terms of cadence, just do whatever's comfortable. So that may be a slow
Incline
grind.
2, resistance 10.
That might be a faster spin for you. Whatever you find is most comfortable, just to get the blood flowing in your legs. For these warm-ups, you know, if I'm out in the morning on a long ride in a heavy training block, I don't even look at it for the first, you know, sometimes even 10 or 15 minutes. I just get on my bike and start moving. Just go through the motions. And then slowly, you'll find that your body starts to warm up. Feel good chemicals in your brain start to release. Start to be produced in higher quantities. Start to circulate. Higher concentrations, serotonin, dopamine, all these chemicals.
Incline 1, resistance 10.
Provide a sense of contentment, kind of a brightness to your thinking, a positive lens, and then also an exhilaration when it comes to training like this.
Flat 11.
Bonjour. Bonjour. All right. Alright, so remember some of the cues that we've talked about before in terms of posture. You want to keep a neutral spine, so you don't want to be too flexed, you don't want to be too extended, just nice and neutral. We are here in the wine country, just outside of Geneva. So you'll see, like we did on our very first workout, you'll see lots and lots of different crops, lots of fruit trees, lots of vineyards, lots of livestock and farm animals. It's just an amazing place.
-1, 11.
Alright, so when you're on a road in a situation like this, where you're going over a bridge, even if you have the right of way, even if it's legal for you to ride that white line or even be to the left of it, the common sense thing to do is to stay as far out of the road times cyclists will get really self-righteous about their rights as cyclists, which is all, you know, well and good, but dead is dead, and, you know, if you get hit by a car and you're dead, you don't have an insurance policy on that. So, you know, it's always best to, you know, like you said, the very first workout, just don't get dead. So that means you gotta, you know, put your ego aside and stay to the right side of the white line, as far away off the road as possible, and that's
Incline 3, resistance 9.
Alright, so we're moving right up on around 5 minutes of this. So I want you to focus in on shooting for a cadence of right around 90 RPM. So again, cadence, RPMs, rotations per minute. That's the revolutions of one leg per minute as we're riding. So on flats, that target that we're going for is right around 90. And then when we get on the climbs, that target, you know, is right around 70. On climbs, anywhere between 60 and 80 is considered within a pretty good range. And then when we're on flats, anywhere between 80 and 100 is usually pretty good.
Incline 5, resistance 8. Target RPM 80.
Alright, so this is the route to Lausanne and also to Morges. And careful this bump.
Incline 7, resistance 7.
So now up this little climb, if you want to jump out of the saddle for a bit, give your backside a rest. That's never a bad thing. Sometimes you might find if you're tired, especially after 3 consecutive days of climbing, you may find that the effort that you expend is not so great, but you may find just a burning in your legs. And a lot of times,
Incline 5, resistance 8.
Waste.
Flat 11. Target RPM 90.
That waste accumulates in your muscles. It's just a natural byproduct of, you know, the physiological processes that we go through when we're climbing. So, if you think about just like, you know, a typical engine in a vehicle, there's an exhaust system. So anytime we're doing work, there's always going to be emissions, and same thing is true when we're, you know, working out our bodies or different physiological processes. There's going to be waste that comes out, and so the way that we pump that out is through our blood. Our blood is filtered through our kidneys, and then that excretes the different waste products that we don't need. And so when you feel that burning, that dull ache in your legs, especially after a big, you know, for example, that 3 days of consecutive climbing we've been doing, the best way to work on that is to get out and just move. Get that blood flowing. Hydration is also really important, so make sure you're drinking enough fluids. Adequate nutrition is important, so make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates to fuel your pursuit, and then enough protein to come in and repair your body. Alright, so remember to use restraint if you can. So we're shooting for no more than 4 out of 10 on that rate of perceived exertion scale. That means that if you were riding with a friend,
Incline 2, resistance 10.
If you wanted to, you could breathe through your nose comfortably when you were riding. You may feel burning in your legs, but that's not necessarily it's not necessarily because of your aerobic capacity, which is being tax, that sometimes has to do with just muscular fitness. So if you feel like you can still breathe easily or talk, but you feel a burning in your legs, just go ahead and try to push through that. So it's important to be able to differentiate pain that you feel in your muscles, muscular fatigue and pain, from effort. A lot of times, you know, there's a confusion there, but effort is based off of the amount of energy you're exerting. So usually what caps that off is your aerobic capacity. So the way that we can tell if we're taxing that is based off of our breathing and our heart rate. So just keep a look at those things and realize that there is a difference. So Geneva is one of the most well-known cities in Switzerland.
-111.
And part of it has to do with the way that it's placed right at the base of the Alps, but then also it rests on Lake Geneva. So because of Lake Geneva, like I mentioned, there's just incredible weather throughout most of the year, and that allows for really great agricultural opportunities, as you know, as we're able to see
Flat
like in these
11.
vineyards. So there's a specific type of wine. I mentioned this a little bit in the very first workout that we did when we were in this area. There's a specific type of wine, which is Swiss wine. And it's only
-111.
produced in this area. And it's based off of traditions and practices which were developed by monks back in the 1200s. So Christian monks developed these practices, and
Incline to
These,
resistance 10.
the farming practices and the different specific ways that they terrace, and the way that that specifically affected the area, the culture, the way it's been based on the linguistics, like we talked a little bit about in the very first workout.
Incline 5,
That
resistance 8.
linguistic tradition, which has the ability to shape people's cultures and shape their view of reality. It's been something that has been so important to this region and so unique, that recently this region here on Lake Geneva, it became a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's protected, and what that's done is it's allowed the farmers who take care of these vineyards in this area to not have to fight so much against the threat of urbanization, the threat of destroying these vineyards and this farmland, to be able to build more houses and more buildings. And so these areas are protected. That's something that international law is really important to Swiss people. As we mentioned before, there's this huge notion of defense and political neutrality that's made Switzerland in general, and Geneva specifically, a hub for resolving different conflicts that have taken place throughout the entire world. Switzerland was able to avoid World War I, as well as World War II, as well as all the other major conflicts that have taken place, even though they have these superpowers that surround them and they're landlocked. And, some of that has had to do with the fact that they've been so influential in settings where arbitration was necessary. And so much of that happens in Geneva. So, interesting fact about Geneva. So there is a facility underground, which is underneath Geneva. It goes across the Swiss-French border. It's known as CERN, C-E-R-N, and it stands for, it's a European acronym, it's a French acronym, but Basically, the way it translates is the European Confederation for Nuclear Research. Underground, there's these huge colliders. They're called colliders. Think of that as like, in terms of these giant tunnels. And within these tunnels, some of them are 27 kilometers. That's the circumference of them. These giant tunnels. They're used for nuclear research that goes into particle physics. And so within these colliders, it's exactly what it sounds like. The nuclear physicists are able to collide different particles. So protons, electrons, neutrons. You might remember in 2006, there was this big story that took place. The claim was that there were neutrinos, which are actually smaller than neutrons. Neutrinos that were actually faster than the speed of light. They traveled faster than the speed of light. In 2006, that made headlines. I remember, maybe it was 2011. It was 2011. I remember specifically because I was in school. I was taking physics classes, and that was a big deal. The reason it was a big deal is because they thought they discovered particles that could move faster than the speed of light. Turns out, even though these facilities are top-notch, there was a little bit of a glitch in the GPS systems, and the neutrinos don't travel faster than the speed of light. But all of that took place there at CERN. CERN is actually the place where the World Wide Web was invented. So even though Al Gore claims it, it actually is something that took place in Switzerland, in Geneva, and it's something that is happening every day, literally under the feet of the people that live in Western Geneva. So pretty amazing stuff. They're at the forefront of trying to discover the different properties of matter and even what's known as antimatter. So they've been able to isolate something known as antihydrogen. So it's essentially the absence of hydrogen. They were able to isolate antihydrogen for 14 minutes, which I studied physics some in my day, but that's beyond my comprehension. I don't even know what that looks like or what it doesn't look like, I guess. But anyway, all that stuff's happening in Geneva, and like I said, we're just outside of Geneva. Okay, so just
Flight
like before,
11.
we want to make sure that we're keeping our cadence right within that range. Shoot for right around 90. If you're between 80 and 100, you're all good. You probably feel that your body's been able to warm up quite a bit. Hopefully, if you have felt, some soreness and dull ache in your legs, that's started to fade. You've got that good old endurance grind going on right now. Still keep your effort nice and easy, so light intensity, no more than 4 out of 10 on that rate of perceived exertion. Keep that heart rate under 77% of your max.
Minus
Beautiful
111.
little city. Wow, check this out, guys. This is amazing. So this is, obviously you can see why this area has been so popular throughout history, why so many celebrities and royalties and different influential artists and scientists and just really great minds from so many ages have decided to come here, and some of them have stayed. Some of my very favorite authors, writers, and poets have spent time out here and lived out here. T.S. Eliot, he stayed here. He was receiving work from a psychiatrist in the 1920s, and he composed some of his best work when he was out here, as well as Herman Hesse. Herman Hesse, he wrote the book Siddhartha. He wrote, tons of other works as well. And he spent time out here with his wife in the 20s. Rousseau spent time here. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. All right, so let's keep moving. Check this out. It's so cool.
Minus 111. Flat 11.
Alright guys, so these recovery rides, like these easy rides that we do, especially on the front end and on the tail end of these big consecutive climbs that we've been doing, these are so important. A lot of times people skip this stuff because they think it's too easy or they don't need it. They don't give their body the chance to rest, and they just keep trying to grind day after day after day. What people don't realize is that it's so detrimental. This is like the bread and butter. This is where the changes take place. This is where your body learns, to be able to grow stronger, to adapt, to make these positive changes that our bodies go through. So, like I've talked about before, and I'll continue to stress, you really just have to trust the process on this, especially because we're doing these 3 consecutive back-to-back climbs. Even though we're not doing crazy high intensity, we're keeping those at a moderate intensity, it builds, and that fatigue is a cumulative fatigue that goes from day to day to day. You gotta really take advantage of these opportunities to rest and recover. And, for a long time I've believed that it's really not possible to overtrain. It's only possible to under-recover. So your body can handle as much work as you put in as long as you're willing to put in just as intense of a recovery interval after you're done. Really giving yourself the opportunity to grow and adapt, get stronger, fitter, more efficient. So activity is a part of that. This
Incline 1 resistance 11.
Recovery is a part of it. Another part, obviously, is sleep. Another huge part is reducing stress from your life, making sure that your nutrition is on par. Alright, so let's safely cross this road.
Flat 11. 111.
Alright, so we're going under one of these bridges. Every time we do this, it makes me nervous. It makes me wonder if there's explosives inside it. That's like a legitimate fact, guys, that I talked about. Where all of these bridges, all of these tunnels have explosives
Incline 2
built
resistance
inside
10.
them so that they can be detonated in case there's any type of invasion. I wonder if anybody's ever pressed the wrong button though, like that. That would make me nervous. Alright, shoulders down. See, I gotta keep reminding myself, when I get tired, I have a tendency to pull my traps up, elevate my shoulder blades, so I gotta keep my shoulders down, stay nice and relaxed, try and keep my back neutral. So as we talked about before, in terms of
Incline 1
the way that
resistance
we
11.
define work scientifically. So work is defined as energy directed towards an object which causes displacement or movement of that object. So In terms of work for us, we are that object, and the energy that we're exerting or directing towards that object is through our legs, through our glutes, and as we move forward, we're displacing that object. So, you know, sometimes people think that there needs to be these really sophisticated, fancy, kind of special workouts. And a lot of times, especially as you're building up your base, building strength, developing consistency, strengthening different muscle groups, different neurological systems, increasing the fitness of your blood, a lot of this just takes place from just good old-fashioned work.
Flat 11.
So putting forth energy to displace or to move an object. And all of that is compounded. It's multiplied
Minus
exponentially.
111.
If we have to increase elevation, so, you know, if we're working against gravity, so that really is the key to this King of the Mountain series. So,
Incline
just
to
putting
resistance
forth
10.
work to move our bodies up these mountains and, you know, fighting gravity in that sense, or over these flats and fighting wind resistance. So it doesn't have to be much more complicated than that. You just get out, you put in work consistently, day after day after day after day. That really is the secret to all of this.
Minus 111.
All right, going under this bridge. No explosions, we're good.
Incline to resistance 10.
All right, got a little bit of a rise, so I'm hopping out of the saddle, mostly because my backside is sore.
Just under 3 minutes to
Okay,
go.
guys, this has been an amazing workout.
Flat 11.
Driving through these incredible vineyards of Switzerland, just outside Lake Geneva. We're gonna come back here. We're gonna finish up another time
Minus
in this
212.
same Route 46. So make sure you come back for that because it just gets better, I promise. Oh man, how cool is this? Woo! Alright. Bumpy road.
West Virginia. Incline 4, resistance 8.
Man, I love this. This is so diverse. Like we're out in those plains, through those crops. We got mountains, we got lakes, we got thick forests. Really, really easy to see why people come to Switzerland and never leave. Alright, keep climbing up just a bit. Keep that intensity light. Like we talked
Incline
about.
7, resistance 6.
Climb up to the top of this peak. Nice and easy, okay? Painful drop. Keep that resistance consistent through both legs. Just nice and nimble. Light as you can. And on these steep sections of climbs, your cadence may drop way, way down. And like we talked about before, that really is okay.
Flat 11.
Alright, we got some kind of citrus fruit growing on these lines up here. Let's go check it out.
Minus 111.
Alright, guys. Oh man, that was amazing. Congrats. Thank you so much for joining me on this. Looks like we got apples. Amazing. Okay, so make sure you do what we talked about before. Make sure you take the opportunity to optimally recover. So hydration, nutrition, all of those things. Make sure you come back and join me on the next one. We've got so much more to see in this beautiful country. I'm Tommy Ribs. I'll see you next time.
Okay. Oh. Ah. 7.16 miles. 30 minutes. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna set up everything and let's do it. Let's do the work.